Hi there, it's Mary with yet another book review for you. This time I'm going to talk about Strange Weather by Joe Hill. I already have a tendency to really like Joe Hill's writing, so I might be biased on this one. This is actually a collection of 4 short novels that he has written, varying ages in his career that he's written them. Some of them have traveled quite some ways with him. This has an October of 2017 release. I know he's doing a lot of contests, or at least he had. I got this through work, which the store I work for actually got the advanced reading copy, and I got it from them. Normally I get my advanced reading copies from entering contests myself and requesting them myself, not through my job. So I don't have all the paperwork that usually comes with my advanced reading copies on this one. This one, it's 4 short novels, like I said, and I think it's interesting because I usually associate Joe Hill with being very sci-fi, having a lot of science fiction aspects to it, and this one does have sci-fi in 2 of the novels, and then one of them is not really sci-fi, and the other one is semi-sci-fi, which I know sounds odd, but I'll explain it. So the first one, the first short novel, is called Snapshot, and it does have these lovely pictures with a lot of the stories. That one is definitely a sci-fi horror type thing. In fact, I would love to know more on that story. Joe Hill is actually known to do also graphic novels, and I think that is something that could also, much like the book Nosferatu spun off into a graphic novel series called The Wraith, I think that this short novel could potentially also spin off into a graphic novel series. I think that would be really interesting to see. It has to do with a camera and memory and everything. And I think it would be interesting to see a graphic novel explore the beginnings of the camera, its journey. Don't want to give too much away again, but it's hard not to, especially with a short story. So it takes place in a neighborhood. There's a lady who's been losing her memory, who used to babysit and / clean for the main character in the book. And he's trying to help her, is really what it comes down to. The next novel, short novel in there, is called Loaded. There's the graphic for that. Now, Loaded it's a horror story in my opinion, but it's not your typical horror story. It's not a true serial killer story. It's not paranormal in any way, but it does deal with the horrors of actual humanity. It deals with guns a lot and stereotypes, and I'd say it's pretty poignant for right now in this time period. It is an important topic that we talk about. I'm in the middle when it comes to gun policies. I'm neither completely for and I'm not completely against. I'm somewhere in the middle. It's a complicated topic, especially for me, for some reason. But it starts out where a little girl gets picked up by her brother. He ends up getting killed that night. This affects her life when she grows up. And at the beginning of this one, I was wondering, how are these characters going to intertwine? When are we going to get to this connection between all these people? And it did get there. It just took a little bit. I just had to be patient. But like I said, it really has to do more with the horrors within people. And don't always necessarily jump to the conclusion of praise or the conclusion of somebody being evil. You know, you gotta learn more. You can't just always look at the surface. I think that this story really emphasizes that in a way. Because as the reader, you know all the underbelly. You know what's going on really, but the characters in the story don't. And there's a reporter who's kind of figuring it out, right alongside of the police in a way, even though she and the police have a complicated situation because it was her brother who was killed by a cop when she was younger, and she did an expose on it. But like I said, the story Loaded really, I think, is more of a horror story of real life. It's much more realistic than your typical horror story. But it is an important dialogue, and hopefully it will start dialogues with people. And I'm very much so a judge the person in front of you, not so that way I get to know the person inside, not the person that I assume they are based on superficial things or the unknown. It's just, I don't know, that's just who I am. I'm happy that that's who I am, but I'm not a person who typically judges too much from not knowing anything. So, like I said, Loaded, definitely not what I expected, especially from Joe Hill. I tend to expect the supernatural a little more from him. I almost feel like it was borderline thriller in the mystery side, even though it wasn't really much of a mystery. But it was still good. Then there is a Loft. In this one, there is a group of people who go skydiving, and there's basically like a living cloud, is how I would put it. And a guy gets trapped on it. And in a way, the cloud tries to provide for him and keep him there in a good way. It tries to kindly keep him there. It doesn't work that well. Unfortunately, it can't provide all of his needs, but he discovers more about the cloud and more about himself, and it's really more of a growing, and that one is definitely a science fiction theme one. But I think it really helped him as a person to grow his time on this cloud, even though he was alone and he had to deal with a lot of stuff in there. But it let him reflect on things that had happened as a result. I must admit, probably my least favorite of the four. Probably why I'm not saying that much about it. It was still good, it's just not my absolute favorite. And then the last one is Rain, which is the one that's kind of half sci-fi. I kind of wonder if it is scientifically possible for what happens here to actually happen in real life. I hypothesize that it might be an actual potential thing that could happen. One day, it rains crystals, essentially. They're about needle size, and it kills a lot of people. Anybody who's outside is pierced by them. So it's believed that it's man-made and it's a terrorism thing, and so that's why I say it's semi-sci-fi. It's one of those, I don't know if it's plausible or not, which is sometimes the best sci-fi. And I do tend to, when I get into science fiction, I'm usually either super silly science fiction or super serious. Like I mostly go towards the dystopic and the post-apocalyptic type stories for science fiction. Horror, I'm all over the place. But, like I said, I do like Joe Hill a lot. So, again, I'm already saying I'm biased. But we're following a certain woman who, during that first rainfall of the crystals, loses her girlfriend who was supposed to be moving in that very day. So you're dealing with a religious cult that's in her neighborhood. Biases against LGBTQ, specifically lesbians in this case, neighbors in general and the interactions between multiple kinds of neighbors. There's a little boy who lives across the street that she babysits. She actually goes on a trip, and she can't drive there because of the roads are jammed up. There's crystals on the ground that the road crews are trying to clean up that cars can't drive over, or it'll bust their tires. Luckily they're in Colorado, so there are chains on the big trucks when they're trying to clean it up. But she actually walks from where she is to where her girlfriend's father is, because her girlfriend and her girlfriend's mother die in that initial rainstorm. So part of it is her journey there, and part of it is her journey back. And so it's the good and the bad of it. It's interesting to see somebody's reaction to what may be the end of the world coming. And it's really the beginning of the potential of the end of the world. which a lot of mediums don't seem to get that into as the beginning of the end of world. They might do a flashback of a quick thing of when it's first starting, but they don't really concentrate on the initial reactions, the way people are coping, the way they're moving through this. So I like that it's definitely dealing more with the immediate beginning. In The Fireman, I don't think he did that much of the very beginning. He did some of it, but not as much as he did with this. Another Joe Hill book. I keep referencing Joe Hill books. I've read every one of his novels. I haven't read his graphic novels, but I have read all of his novels. So I would say out of these 4 short novels, my favorite 2 were the first and the last. I'm just going to say it. Those were my 2 favorites. Like I said, I would like to see more out of these stories. The 4th one, I think it would be hard to expand upon too much. The first one, I think you could really have some more interesting fun with and expand on. For those of you who don't know this, Joe Hill has actually got a famous dad. Joe Hill is the name that he uses to write. Don't know if they have a picture of him in here. It looks like they do not. But Joe Hill is also, for those who may not already know, is the son of Stephen King. Now in his full novels, in the thick ones that he does, The Fireman, Nosferatu, Horns, Heart-Shaped Box, those all have little tweak hints at his dad's work. I've not read his brother's work that he's done. I only know of the books he's done with Stephen King, and that's Owen King. There's a new one out of theirs too, which I'm curious about. I'm tempted to buy it before it gets to the used bookstore, but we'll see. We'll see what I do with that. But Joe Hill, I like his writing better than Stephen King so far. I haven't read all of Stephen King though. I've read some, but not all. But I do like that he has these little hints at his dad's work, or like these little references that he puts in there. I think that's a nice touch. And he gets his name Joe Hill not from the historical person, but actually from his middle name. He shortens his middle name to Hill. So I hope that you enjoyed that book review, and I tried to keep things a little vague on that one so that way I wouldn't give away too much. I hope you're having a great day. Keep reading, and please, be kind to each other.